Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcasting source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican. Joining me is co-host Jason Carey, and this is your final Monday mailbag for the year 2025. Jason, it's been a season. We've had our highs, we've had our lows. It's been a blast, and it's also been a little bit of a pain at times. How are you doing, my friend? And what's new in your world?
I'm doing great. It's the end of the year. It flew by really fast. All things considered, doing great.
I only look forward to now eating turkey this Thanksgiving, running at Centerville Bank Stadium come this Thursday, and then, of course, answering the plethora of questions we have here. Our listeners, we put out one final mailbag, request, and they delivered on some very, very good questions. Some kind of crazy questions too that I'm a little perplexed about why you would ask these things, more related towards personality things. But I thought we would keep this on soccer, but maybe this will get a little off the rails tonight. We'll see what happens here. Let's just jump straight into this and start with some of the questions we've gotten from the listenership, because it's going to be a long podcast, and who knows what will happen as people trickle into the stream and ask questions as we go. So let's just jump right into this.
Yeah. First one here, Brandon G says, thoughts on the USL final and where do you rank this all time?
So, man, I have to be careful how I say this, because I've already said something online, and it's now probably our most viewed tweet of all time, and it was not intended to be. You have to give flowers to whichever team wins the championship. Kudos to you. Pittsburgh Riverhounds went out and did something that very few teams would probably be capable of doing, in winning a entire playoff cup run on just scoring one goal. That goal, of course, coming against Rhode Island, not giving up a goal in over 500 minutes, which extended beyond just the playoff format as well. You think about all the additional extra time and the penalties that they had to win in order to get all the way to that final stage and then win it. You want to give your flowers. Also, when you think about how Lily Ball has been, we've talked about this at length through the seasons we've now experienced them. This is nothing new. This is what you expect. The problem is we've always seen where Lily Ball ends up hitting that, between the rock and the hard place of a high output team that can score a lot of goals. Sometimes it doesn't always keep, what maybe would have been a 3-goal game down to a 1-goal game, but usually goals leak through. Didn't see that from the Riverhounds. Same thing on the Tulsa side of things. I didn't realize they hadn't conceded a match since May at home this year at 1OK Field. In addition, they hadn't let in a goal in like 500, 600 minutes as well. So I knew going into that game, it was probably going to be either Tulsa's to take in terms of getting a goal in regular time, or it was probably going to come down to this. But like between you and me, I didn't enjoy that final. And it's not because the Riverhounds won and they beat us. I don't care about that storyline. I don't enjoy going into a final on Big CBS and watching a game be 0-0. If you want a game to go 1-1, 2-2, and it still ends up in extra time and then into penalties, totally fine. But a 0-0, and I think Pittsburgh had maybe 2 shots on target, one of them ringing off the post. That's not fun soccer. I don't think that's how you want to make a statement that the USL is growing as exciting soccer to watch in the United States. But I thought it was probably the worst USL championship final of all time in the championship era. It's definitely the first 0-0 performance we've seen in the championship era. Every other final has seen at least one goal go into the back of the net in regular or added time. So I'm not a fan of it, but also I'm not going to diminish what Pittsburgh accomplished here, and kudos to them.
I think you can say two things at the same time. It can be impressive what they did to be able to get there, but you can also say that, as a neutral, it was not exciting from their perspective, right? You watched that game and you saw a Tulsa team try and really go for the game. You could tell that was not Pittsburgh MO. They were not trying to actually go for that game. They were trying to do exactly what they did. They were trying to drag that game out because they were confident that they could win in penalties. And if you're not a Pittsburgh fan, that's not what I really want to see, right? I wanted to see a little more action there. So, like I said, I don't care about them in the sense that they beat us. Fair enough. We didn't do enough to beat them. So, hey, they did what they needed to get on. But as a neutral, I kind of want a little more excitement, and I didn't feel like it was there.
Agreed. And the tweet that I got just crucified from Pittsburgh on was, it wasn't even in after the final was over. I tweeted it in the middle of the game, probably around the 70th minute. And I just said that the Pittsburgh Riverhounds are the softest team in the championship. And I stand by that. If you go back and rewatch that game, if you want to punish yourself, the amount of times contact would drop a Riverhounds player versus the amount of times we would see a Tulsa player try to battle through, stay on their feet, dribble through something, try to continue on with like the persistent infringement. It was two different teams' game plans. Riverhounds, they're a flopping team, and you can take that. It got you the championship. Congratulations. But I hope that isn't something we see more of in the championship next season, because it's not going to make the game fun, and it especially isn't going to work for the way Rhode Island FC play in that physical style. These players have to be able to stay on their feet. Augie Williams and Barnes went down 2 times where it was just like, it was like the most gentlest of a caress on the back, and they just went, you thought they had been shot. And it's just, I don't like to see that in my soccer, so it needs to get out of here. Mark K asks this question: watching the way the Riverhounds won the final, would we have had a better chance of winning the USL final this year if we had advanced past them versus when we played the Switchbacks? This is an interesting one.
Yeah, it is an interesting kind of thought exercise. The things I would argue here, though, is I think it's pretty like cut and dry that last year's RFC was a better version than this, right? We didn't get better this year. If anything, we backslided a little bit. And I think that the reality is, like, we can't take away from what Tulsa did this year. And I don't necessarily, I think that we would have made a more exciting game of it, but I wouldn't go in there 100% confident saying that we're going to take Tulsa out. I think we could have made a game of it, but I don't know. How do you feel about that, in a sense of, like, do you think Tulsa was an opponent that we could have taken? Because I mean, we couldn't beat the Riverhounds.
Well, okay. So, but I hear you, but I would think maybe in the spirit of this exercise, if you look at Tulsa and remove them from the equation, it's more of the football defense that we're talking about. Like, we've joked and been serious at times about the negative football that Pittsburgh Riverhounds under Lilly and now Vincent play, which is unbearable. But we also are a very similar, we're a very similar team in that sense of low offensive production, focus on defense. I think we take our chances in the middle and final third a little bit more courageously than Pittsburgh does. They're very much, they clam into that like back 5 before they find an attack outlet, and usually over the top to win a second ball. I don't know how that would have stacked up against Tulsa, but I can say, when you look back at Rhode Island versus Colorado, it was a terrible matchup for Kano. Not even just the final, it was also the other game we played against Colorado earlier in the season. We didn't seem to have the answers, similar to other teams where we've experienced those problems before. We only have one sample size of Tulsa. We beat them last year in a comeback win at Tulsa. So, like, part of me wants to say, just from the statistics, yeah, maybe we would have had a better go at Tulsa, because we've seen success away. We've never tasted that at Colorado Springs. So I think I understand the spirit of Mark's question. And I also could say, since we also play a style of football that's defensive first, maybe we could have held on and done the same thing the Riverhounds did. But I think, to your point, taking away from how great Tulsa's been, the Switchbacks were not this great last year, and the Tulsa does not have elevation to benefit themselves in those matchups. So you could say what if, but the real answer, I think, it goes back to, we didn't get past the Riverhounds this year, so it's a moot point. But yeah, I'm just glad we made it once to the final, and hopefully we come back really soon here in the near future. What's this next question?
Yeah, Stacy L here says, I listened to your show about the players union, but didn't realize it was this bad with all the player protests in the final. Do you see the league experiencing a lockout for 2026?
So for those that don't know, because they only watch the broadcast and haven't caught up on any of the other stuff, you have to know that right now the USLPA, in a constant kind of grassroots guerrilla warfare campaign against the league right now, because there has been very little to no movement in the collective bargaining agreement discussions. That's the contract for the players union. When we interviewed Connor Tobin and just asked kind of what was the state on that, we asked, or alluded to at the end, could a lockout be something that they would eventually have to go to? And Connor said on the show that that's the end card, that's the end game, right? Like, you don't want to have to use that, because then everyone suffers. The players suffer, the league suffers, the fandom suffers. But that is the final. We can't meet somewhere. We're not having healthy discord, so we're going to have to pull this, ace out of our sleeve. In reality, what I do know is that from talking with Connor and other reps from the league and from the USLPA around the league, there most likely will be, we won't see the lockout instantaneously. This isn't something where, remember, medical report in is like January 19th, right? The preseason starts end of January into February. You're not going to see these players not show up for medical. They're going to start getting ready preseason conditioning because they'll still be getting paid by their teams respectively. So what will happen is this will really come to a flashpoint around that first game. We may even get a game or two into the season, and then when things break down, if they break down, we could see a potential lockout. But I've been saying this around online right now. What people need to understand, and what the argument on those protests was, on those cards, was it said, USL HQ pro rel, try pro standards first. The Lions' share of the ongoing disruption to the negotiations, which they're in like their 40th iteration now, is the fact that the CBA can't move forward on the things like healthcare, on the things like minimum salary player increase, and on other things like, paying 75% or more of the player contract if a club folds, right? Those things are all easy to start discussing and getting the numbers together. The league could work with the players union and get a health contract that could be policed through the entirety of the country. We learned something really fascinating about how in Florida you can't have workers' comp for players because it's not allowed by the state. So if the USL as a league was down there, like, they couldn't ratify that in Florida, which I thought was, I almost wondered, like, is that why the USL is based in Florida? I don't know. But but having said that, the real problem right now is this pro rel. The other part of what that was on the shirts by the players as they walked out, which CBS did not show in the broadcast. It is the problem of right now, the championship CBA has to carry water for the future Premier or Division One CBA. Because remember, there's a USL 1 CBA right now. There's also a USL Championship. There will probably be a Division 1 CBA at some point, but you can't start a collective bargaining agreement for a union that has no players in it. You can't put the cart in front of the horse in that sense. So the championship has to protect these players. As we know, 10 to 12 of these clubs will suddenly be elevated into Division 1, and we know the CBA, they want to get past that 3-year mark, probably 3 to 5 is my guess, which will get into 2028 gameplay, which is Division 1 soccer. So the union needs to know exactly what will make up the rules, requirements, and configuration of this premiership before they can sign off on anything. Imagine handicapping yourself and saying, hey, here's the player threshold minimum we want, and then they go in and set a absurdly low player threshold cap for salaries in top flight soccer for USL that's supposed to compete with the likes of MLS. There are a lot of things that they need to know, and that hasn't been made transparent. So it has stalled the ability for these discussions to make any meaningful progress. It's not that the league, and I've said this, and I'm not defending the league. The league's not sitting there counting their dollar bills and going, haha, we're so rich, we're making all this money, screw you, players. They just haven't been able to give the strategy to the USLPA because they probably are still working on it. If anything, it's the mistake by the league, Jason, that the USLPA, knowing that they were going into this CBA discussion in this year, that they announced pro rel right now. You could have either said, hey, quietly, we're going to talk to you, USLPA. We will be doing this, and then we'll announce it sometime around FIFA, World Cup 2026. Get everyone excited, but we'll already have met all the requirements because we're going to talk about this kind of offline, like off the record. We want to get it all fleshed out versus, hey, we're going to announce this right now. Oh, wait, now we have the CBA to go through. And why would the CBA want to finalize any plan when you haven't shown them the plan? And it's now a bad look for the league because, like, hey, they need to make the plan happen right now. And they're going to have to make commitments in stone 3 years in advance to be able to be honored by that. So I look at it as one of two things. CBA is either going to have to be a very short CBA, and they're going to have to do this all again right before Division 1 launches, or they're going to have to take the time. And I think if everyone's acting in good faith and they understand, like, hey, we need pro standards to be elevated in this league, in this country, but also we're trying to build something we've never done before. Let's meet in the middle here. I think we can avoid the lockout. But if both of these entities stop talking to each other and like egos get in the way, it's going to be a big problem. And we saw that at the end of the final, where allegedly now the USL Championship got so mad that the players came out in those shirts and those signs went out that they took Pittsburgh's ability to celebrate their cup win away from them. Did you see those pictures by any chance?
Yeah, I saw the pictures of them walking out, and then I didn't realize I initially thought it was just because the game ran forever.
Yeah, you had extra time, then into penalties. You're on big CBS, like they got to get you off the air at that point. I was in the same, or it was like it's Pittsburgh. They didn't want to like celebrate an away team victory and won okay. But apparently, according to some people online, it was the USL retaliating against the USLPA. That's a big problem. That's egos getting hurt. That's pride getting bruised. Like, I think I said that backwards. But anyways, that's a big issue. And if that's going to continue into the discussions, then I get scared for the other side of that coin and say, well, maybe a lockout might be coming.
Yeah, maybe this is kind of a bit of a fire starter moment here that kind of brews in the off season and causes some issues next year.
Yeah, and Tim says it right. I mean, nothing would be worse for this league than a work stoppage. If that happens in the middle of World Cup fever, that could be a nail in the coffin for this league to move to at least the goals they want to get to and never be taken in serious as a league again. So they're going to have to figure something out really, really closely because time is of the essence. And the fact they've had a whole year to go through this, and we're now getting into end of November, into December. I mean, we're like 45 days before players are basically reporting back in for medical. That is a huge concern. Next question here. Taras asks, here we go, Jason. Was 2025 a successful season? And does that depend on the point of view, i.e. ownership, the coaches, players, or the fans?
I think it does really depend on the point of view. I'd say overall trying, we talked a little bit about this last week with Torrin, but I'd like to kind of say that overall, I think it was successful in a sense that we launched the brand new stadium. We got through kind of the growing pains to a certain extent. Maybe the performance wasn't always the best to begin with, but really started to pick it up second half of the year. And we made another Eastern Conference final. Like if you look at it that way, like I think that we did pretty well there. Now, if you, from the point of ownership, coaches, players, fans, like each person can kind of have their own different view. I think ownership will probably mostly be happy with what they saw there. I don't know in regards to like, what do we have, like 5 sellouts off the top of my head, something around there?
5
so,
sellouts.
I think that's
average
good.
Attendance was 7,800 people. I love the line that Kano said at the block party where he was talking about the incredible work that the front office had done, the incredible facilities that were at Centerville Bank Stadium. And then he got quoted as saying that he talked to a Revs person, and a Revs person said, like a Revs person in their front office told Kano that their away lockers at Rhode Island FC were better than the away locker amenities at Gillette for MLS teams that traveled. So Messi, if he wants better amenities, should come down and play against RIFC because he won't get the same kind of class amenities at Gillette, which I just thought was hysterical.
So Messi to Miami FC rumors. Here we go. He wants to open the Homestead Stadium.
Little did he know when he was buying into the league, he did buy a team. It was just a USL championship. So that's on him.
But yeah, I think overall, from my point of view, I think successful. I think maybe, coach probably was upset that he probably didn't, because the type of person he is, he probably wanted to go all the way again. But I think once that kind of like that dust will settle, I think he'll be proud of getting to 2 Eastern Conference champions in a row in his first 2 years as a head coach. I mean, that is impressive in itself.
Yeah, and I like the way it's worded because we talked about this at the kind of the recap show after Pittsburgh, and we said financially, from an ownership, from a front office perspective, it had been an incredible success. Rhode Island quickly elevated now to, I think, number 4 in total attendance tracking in the championship, which that will happen with a brand new team in a brand new stadium. So more work to be done there to make sure that those people return for games next year. More sellouts need to occur next season. So I don't have anything. I mean, there are a couple things. There's a question down here in a bit that maybe we need to talk about when we can't give all the flowers in the world to the front office. But I think from all of that perspective, I think it was a success. I think every Rhode Island fan should be excited for what is going to come on that side of the product. And then I think from the coaches and players, I mean, we talked to them at length, and none of them said, most of them, I should say, they didn't glow about the season. All of them said something to the desired effect of, we left it all out there, but we wanted more, or we should have gotten more, right? They weren't satisfied. So if you're not satisfied with something, I think you have to leave it as less than successful. I mean, tremendous success again to get to the Eastern Conference Final, and a couple of other things which we'll share here in a second. But I don't think the players or coaches are happy with it. So I know as the soccer sickos, I know those fans were frustrated at times, disappointed in others, and then there were some really high highs. I think of the Maxi Rodriguez penalty conversion at the death against North Carolina, and watching Centerville Bank Stadium, just the lid blow off that stadium. Like, those are moments I will never forget. It was a fun season to cover this team. It was a fun season to be a part of this community, and it was fun to be able to say we still made it back to the Eastern Conference Final. So I will say they did what they could with. They did the most with what they had, but I don't think that anyone should sit there and say that this was a complete successful season. I think that they need to use that fuel and ammunition for more, and a desire to return all the way to the Cup final and win it next season in 2026. And I think that's what needs to spur them on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right attitude for them to have. When we look on to the next one here from Kevin B. What needs to be done in 2026 in order to have a more successful regular season campaign and hopefully secure a home playoff spot?
So going back to that away locker room amenities joke or comment from Cano Smith, I would say also maybe we need to rough that away locker room up, maybe turn the AC off or the heater, whatever temperature we want them to have, give them the opposite, take a few lights out, that kind of thing, take the water pressure out of the showers over there. I think one of the things that we talked about at length, at least on the Eastern Conference side of things, is everyone that showed up at that stadium, minus Hartford, they were experiencing a side of Rhode Island FC fandom that they had not yet seen. So the teams, Cano said, how many times, Jason, did Cano say in our post games, teams were showing up at 110% because it was a new stadium, it was a loud stadium, it was what players from other teams want to experience, and it got them excited to say, like, we're gonna ruin 7,000 fans day right now. I think that as that veneer comes off for the home team for Rhode Island, I think we'll start to see a little bit of that slide off as well for away teams. They've been there before. It's not new to them anymore. So I think just there's going to be like a natural, I don't know, law of averages that away teams may not have as much intensity when they start coming here and they've been here before. But to get into the nitty gritty with Kevin, I think it's not wins, because Cano will never promise you wins, but I think it's goals. I think we need to see twice the number of goals that we saw in 2025 and 2026. Whether that results in wins or not, people need to be able to sing Psycho Killer at a much more frequent pace. And I think that's the first step. And if your team right now can't score goals, then you're going to have to go find a goal scorer. And if your team can score goals, but the tactics you've chosen with a focus on defense, maybe you're going to have to adjust. I truly think that this team can be something special in growing the fandom if people can see the goals a little bit more often. What was it, seven games that we didn't score a goal, and only 2 or 3 matches, I'm pulling it out of thin air right now, 2 or 3 matches with multiple goals scored in the regular season. We need to see more success there, and I think then that will in turn amplify the team, amplify the crowd. We'll see more wins at home, which will then result in hopefully a playoff berth at home, because that's the other part of it, right? It's goals first, and then we need a home playoff berth. We need to stop being the Road Warriors for the entirety of the playoff run, and we need to be able to treat fans, to reward fans with a home playoff game in 2026. What about you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that even if goal scoring just comes more often at home, I mean, I think that's important to kind of help build and maintain that fan base, right? And when it comes to away matches can be difficult. So you can look at those and say, like, hey, we, scrapped out a 0-0 draw against a tough opponent, and that is perfectly acceptable. But when we come home, we don't need to be dropping 0-0s in front of fans.
Agreed. Nate Ski says making the semifinals for 2 seasons in a row is an absolute goal. And then Matt Jean writes in, do you think having URI football play a full season on the turf will help it settle down and keeping the injuries down? Now, Matthew Jean, and I'm using your full name there. We've had theories all season long. This has been one of the highest injury seasons of all time. for any club, but so specifically RIFC, and some of it has to be related to that turf, because I think a majority of these injuries have happened while practicing, training or playing at Centerville Bank Stadium. And if this turf is as wonderful as it's supposed to be, which it is, it's phenomenal turf. If you've never been down on it, it is very good turf. Then to me, that is the only other thing, is that it just has not settled in, right? Like, no matter how many times you weigh something down, no matter how many times you stamp it down, all that stuff, like, it takes time to like grow artificial roots, which I know is not a thing, but it takes time for those things to happen. So, that being said, if it's not turf related and Kano is just pushing these guys way too hard, that's something Kano would have to reflect on. But I don't know that that's the case. I don't know if URI will help the field. If anything, I've always considered wear and tear to be nothing good for artificial turf. I think if the turf has had any issues, it's definitely locked in at this point after a full season under its belt. So I don't think the turf would be the problem anymore. But if players want to come forward and tell me, off the record, and then I'll just like wink at people, it's the turf, we're more than happy to have that conversation. But I don't know that URI will do anything but cause damage to our facilities more than to help anything. All right, next question. Zach C writes in, where are the areas in the roster that we need to improve in this offseason, and how much wiggle room does Kano have, Jason?
I think he has tons of wiggle room, in a sense of like, I guess it depends what do they mean by that. I guess we also don't know all the roster decisions. We've gotten a lot of speculation, but if I just took the team as it was this year, assuming that most of the players in our key areas of strength returned, I would say we would need an additional striker, and specifically someone who's actually a striker, not a winger, an attacking midfielder, like a legit striker. And someone, if not a right back, like a right wing back, right midfielder, someone, so that we don't constantly have to like push Clay or out there. Or even sometimes Amos was playing there. And while he did really good, you also didn't see the full effect of what he could bring to the other side of the pitch, because he was, trying to lock someone down defensively.
So 6 more center backs is what you're saying. Perfect. And then spoiler alert, Ewan writes in the chat, for what it's worth, Michael Parkhurst has discussed on another podcast that they are working on a training facility. I have heard about that. I have not confirmed if that's something that will be ready to go for 2026. They have options where they could do something of a temporary, or they could find the building and get it ready. But getting all of that set before preseason is a tall order. And from what I remember in my discussions, it's also about how will that affect the super team and the strategy there when they online the women's team. So even if there's more to that podcast, drop a link, let us know. But as of right now, I don't know if that'll be ready for the 2026 season. So sorry, Jason, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I think that there's, we need to score more goals. So I think that and we unfortunately saw that JJ, and even at times Chico, had some kind of health concerns there. And, Noah's not really an out and out striker. He's kind of like a wide forward, if you will. We saw not a lot of Machu Ndongo, and I don't know if he's ready to just step right into that role. I think he is still kind of a one for the future. And I think getting maybe a full season training with the first team will do a lot of good for him. And maybe we can still actually get some like more minutes out of him next year, but you don't want to be in a spot where you're relying on him. Right. And then, Frank also kind of had some health concerns this year. Also felt like a bit of form issues, where there are games where he was playing, really well, lights out, and other matches where it seemed like maybe he lost favor and we just wouldn't see him for a while. And he was not reported injured either. He just wasn't making that first team. I don't know if he is a, number one right back choice for this team. He's had a few bright games, but I just don't know if the consistency is there. So like some sort of legit right-sided player. And then maybe Frank can be that backup understudy, because he also is very capable of playing in the back line and does.
Look how many times Grant Stillman was injured this season as well.
Yeah.
Right? You'll have the alternate, whether it's the right wing back or the right center back then at that point. No, I agree with you. I think I think it's really difficult to answer that question when you think about how Kano how many injuries Kano actually experienced. And from the other side of things, though, when we talk about wiggle room, I mean, it sounds like a majority of this team is coming back. We know of 2 player departures that have already happened. We know of a third that we can't talk about yet. And from what I'm hearing, it could be a majority of these players come back. I think there's only 2 players in limbo, maybe 3 players, and only one of them could be a starter at any given time. So, like, it's not like this isn't the same squad that will be coming back next year. So, like, wiggle room wise, like, he maybe gets one player that could be a differentiation on, like, the starting 11, and then after that, it's gonna have to be a player that fights his way up through bench play or, even just the training squad. Like, I don't know how much wiggle room Kano has here in this next year because so many of these players are already locked up for 2026.
Yeah. Next one here from Ben S. He says, with a very underwhelming amount of goals for this season, how many pieces of the offense do you see being new players next year? Or will we see a change in the system/tactics coach runs next year?
So, I mean, if you know Coach Kano, the 3-4-3 is dead, and he'll have a whole new football system ready to go for 2026 at this point. The man is a constant learner of the game, a constant tinkerer, and I think he doesn't like to set into something to be predictable. So I wouldn't be surprised next year if we suddenly see a Pittsburgh Riverhound a true 5-4-1, right? Like, who knows? So I don't know from a system perspective. I think tactics wise, the thing he's going to focus on them probably the most in this offseason and work with his technical staff on is he's got to figure out how to produce goals from set pieces and corners. That it was abysmal, and I think every player would say the same thing. And I don't know if it came down to what Kano had as tactics that didn't work, or like just the ultimate worst luck, like the curse of the chicken sandwich. But the fact of the matter is that nothing was produced in that manner. That's got to be a key focus for him to learn how to leverage those players in the ways that will benefit the team and the construction that he sees as appropriate. In terms of new players, like I said a second ago, I think we're probably due for one starting caliber player, and then maybe, I mean, whatever it takes to fill out the rest of the roster. But I would say one starting caliber player, one fringe player that could be a starter or will be a bench, be an impact sub, and then the rest that will fight their way through. This team has spent a lot of money. I've heard numbers that like we're the 3rd highest payroll in the USL. I would love for whoever is spreading that rumor around to tell me, show me your spreadsheet, like show me what we're talking about here. And also too, if like the 3rd highest is because we outspent 16 other clubs by $17, like I'm sure there's some wide gaps. I'm sure this isn't as I'm sure we talk about the players and the performances having a good parity, but I'm sure the salaries don't reflect the same thing. But if we are truly that high, like I don't know how much more money we could spend. And also, like, you could argue it, Jason, that money's gotten you to 2 Eastern Conference finals, or you could say, hey, you're spending a lot of money and you got 29 goals last season. Like, I don't know which way you want to argue that, but you could go either direction.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about data, right? You can kind of spin it to tell the story you want to, depending on how much information you choose to share. So
agreed. So I would say that that's probably what we're in line with, but Kano definitely needs to re-tinker his corners and set pieces for sure. Carlos L writes in, what was Kano's best and worst decision as both a head coach and a general manager this season?
Oh, I don't like giving worst decision on a job that I can't do, but
so let's do this for the spirit of time. You take the head coach and I'll take the general manager, and we'll split it that way. So you get to go tactics and performance on the pitch, and I'll take the GM side of things.
I mean, I guess if I say worst decision, just because I think it didn't pan out, I think the trying to implement that kind of 4-2-3-1 that really didn't work. I think that, as we got later into the season, going with a 3-4-3, just a variation of a 3-5-2, kind of ended up working out best for us. So I think that didn't really pan out well for him. Best decision, I mean, I guess this counts as general. I was going to say like signing Hamidi Diop, considering
that's a GM decision, buddy. That's
how impactful he was.
Maybe I guess playing Hamidi Diop.
I don't know. I mean, maybe then going back to the 3-4-3 and just like being able to just say, hey, I tried something and it didn't work out, and like let's go back to what works and what's proven.
I mean, I think tactically he set up really well in the first 2 playoff games. In going against Charleston, that was no easy feat. And then, I think Charleston, then into North Carolina, he really seemed to understand it. We could talk about the Riverhounds game, but let's be honest, nobody wants to talk about that Riverhounds game. So if you want to hear a really good discussion about Kano's tactics, go listen to This League from Backfield with John Morrissey. They did a really good job of kind of explaining that in levels and dimensions that we probably never could. I'll say as a GM, so you kind of stole the thunder there. I'll pan out to bigger picture, not just Hamidi, but I think defensively our reinforcements this season were superior. And I even think actually every defensive signing we had in the offseason was masterclass. Aldair Sanchez, one of the best players on the wings. Danny Rivera didn't quite work out, but he was injured for such an extended period of time that I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah, that could be an AST thing too, where like if he makes his way back into the team next year, all of a sudden he could be a shining star for us.
Hugo, an incredible player now, amazing depth that we have. The 25-day contract into permanent signing of Rio Hope Gunn, exactly what we needed at a certain place at a certain time. Ame Mabika, I don't have any real qualms or issues with what he brought to the team. Certainly added a level of defensive composure that we needed at extended periods. And then, like you said, Hamidi Diop, I think all of his defensive signings, I think he gets 100 out of 100 on that. I think that's an A+.
I think Jeff Hughes actually got the right answer here. Him watching the game from the roof, that was top coaching decision.
That might be a favorite moment. I don't know about best coaching decision. And remember, Jeff, legally he wasn't allowed to coach at that point because he had been red carded.
So he was the general manager at the
time. So if that's where Kano gets his flowers, I think from a questioning standpoint, maybe not a decision I understand and would love to talk to him. We're allegedly going to have this conversation with him before the end of the year, and I'm excited to, so maybe we can ask. I didn't quite understand a couple of things. I didn't really understand some of the midfield acquisitions. So like Taimu Okiyoshi, when it first happened, I was like, okay, this is a depth piece. It'll rotate through the triangle. He seemed like a Marky Barra light. And then, you already knew Marky Barra was going to get displaced with Maxi Rodriguez as we understood the triangle, thinking that we were going to carry the formation over. And then what I think a lot of people overlooked, because we didn't see it until so late in the season, was Hugo was always destined to become a 6 for this team. And so when you think about it from a DM capacity, we were already so deep with Bacharach signing. I didn't really understand Okiyoshi. Now I understand the signing and then loaning him down. So if the contract was for like the minimum peanuts, like, okay, fine. Like we got a player, we tested the waters. I don't think Okiyoshi will be returning to the squad, just given the fact that we've seen him in a leg brace. It looks like he may have had an ACL issue or concern. He's already traveling with family around West Virginia and whatnot. If we do have him back, we'll figure that out as time happens and moves on. But like now seeing the amount of acquisitions we had in one particular space on the pitch, which is to the other thing, which people have yelled at about all year, is the lack of having depth at either the winger or forward position after losing Mark Doyle. It's kind of like, why did we go so deep on midfielders that we didn't even realize we thought Bacharach was a center back from the beginning. So I would say I would have much rather seen a striker. Who knows what that would have done? You can never predict injuries, Jason. It's not fair to put that on Kano, but to not have a third option until technically Dwayne arrived, which was June, July. Like, okay, maybe not the best GM decisions, especially when, people on podcasts like Tide Talk like us were calling for that from the very beginning. Like, who is the Mark Doyle alternate? Mark Doyle, again, what did you say? Over 1,000 minutes last year, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not nothing. So what was your tactical decision there? And so maybe that's in Dongo next year, like you said, but we'll see. But I was interested, nevertheless, on that one. What's the next question?
Yeah, Bob D here said, speaking of which, didn't see Taimu with the block party, but did see Isaac. Should we assume he's gone?
I hate when there's a question and then I forget that it's in there, so my answers start blending together. So yeah, so like I just said, Taimu has been traveling ever since Westchester, the end of their season. Did not see him at the block party. We don't know the official, conversations. I'm assuming he had to come back, unless because of his injury, Kano maybe had that from a remote player discussion, or maybe he came back and then slipped back out in the night. But I just don't think Ty moves back. No failing on him, but I just don't think he did enough, and I don't think we really need him back. And so unless again it's just like you're playing, basically you're paying to play. Like I don't see a way where we need Ty back. Now if he comes back, I'd love to have another look at him. I don't see where he'll be there, and I'm not even sure Isaac's coming back either. Like I think that's all still up in the air. It's really difficult to not ask these players directly, like, "Hey, are you coming back next year?" when you're talking to them, because like they're there to celebrate, they're there to be happy, and if they're not, the last thing they want is like, "Hey, I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for asking. And no, I won't be returning to this club next year. Thanks for bringing that back up right now."
Yeah, I think he's a very solid player. But unless we have a lot of departures from the midfield, I just kind of, like you said, same thing. I just kind of don't see it happening.
Yeah. James T writes in, "Are the white kits cursed?" Jason, we pulled the data from Tyler Hatch, scientist Tyler Hatch. So you have the real answer there. But what's the vibe check on the white kit, on the wave kit?
I having seen the science already. I mean, I like. Part of me wants to say yes. I'd argue that maybe there's just not enough sample size, but maybe part of it feels like, to me, and this is no slight against the kit itself. I think to me, it's more of the way it happened. It felt like the kit happened because the fans demanded kits, and they're like, "Oh, we thought you guys would be fine with the ones you already had." And they're like, "No, we want to give you our money." And so in that regards, it almost was like an unplanned kit in that sense of like, maybe it just,
when I write the official Rhode Island story one day, when I write the whole novel in like 5 or 10 years, I'll tell the story of the wave kit and how it came to be. It would blow a lot of people's minds if they learned exactly how the wave kit came into creation. But that's a story for 10 years down the road, when I need to stop podcasting for legal reasons and make all that final money on all the things the knowledge I've accumulated about RFC.
In that regards, maybe it feels like, you could see it being a little bit cursed in that regards. Like I said, still small sample size though, so I'm willing to let the data speak for itself, and hopefully it can those numbers can go up.
So for those of you that are not on the Discord, you're missing out on all of the lively conversation. But the wave kit has only seen 2 wins in its 8 matches played while wearing it. So it's got a PPG, or points per game, of just 1.13. Interestingly, Jason, and again, full credit to Tyler on this, he's got the other 2 for both seasons combined. Didn't realize that the energy kit is the superior kit. I always thought the road kit had more gravitas to it, but the energy kit has seen 16 wins, 14 draws, and just 7 losses. That energy, or that road kit, 13 wins, 10 draws, and 12
I
losses.
think the huge stat here actually is the goal difference. Look at the goal difference of the energy compared to the road.
55 goals for, 27 goals against, for a goal differential of 28 goals, 62 points earned. Yeah, only a +2 on the road kit. So again, the wave kit is cursed, and we need to retire that as fast as possible. People have asked me, it's not a question in here tonight, but people have asked me, do we know what's going on for next year? Hard to say. I did hear rumblings at the beginning of the season that they were trying to maximize the value of both the energy and road kits into this final year, and then it felt like they were maybe going to get a refresh of both. That was before the wave kits kind of came into production. So now I could probably see them only rotating maybe 1 kit and getting a little bit more value out of one, or they could do a combination and get both of the kits out. And so we could see 2 new kits next year. But I would guess the energy kit is next up to be retired, run the road kit, and then the wave kit for 1 more season. And then you'll start seeing 1 every year. And if the club gets smart, they'll start putting out a couple extra kits, like a community kit, a 3rd kit, a supporters kit. Like, what is it? Birmingham Legion had like 9 kits come out this year. Hearts of Pine, how many kits did they have come out this season?
I think another one was just released today.
For Hearts of Pine?
Just joking.
You got me so good on that. All right, what's this next question here?
Paul K here says, Does it say something about the organization that the top 3 front office people brought in to start the team have departed?
So, for those of you that have not been paying attention to LinkedIn, Sabina Feldman did announce that she has departed Rhode Island FC and she has joined the NWSL team in Boston Legacy as their chief marketing officer. Sabina was the chief marketing officer here for Rhode Island for these past 3 years, responsible for a lot of great things like Chip. She was completely involved in the design, creation, and structure of Chip. She also gets credit for Wicked Good Soccer. I'll let you guys decide in the chat how you feel about that. But point in matter is Sabina has been the kind of just the pulse of all things trying to expand this club, whether through community efforts, marketing efforts, campaign efforts, you name it. Like the Taylor Swift night was very much influenced by her decision to get that as one of the themes. So whether you liked her or not, she was very vital to the organization. Now, in reference to what Paul's asking here, he's also then walking it back to the fact that we had Brett Louie, our president, step away from the club in the inaugural season, just a few months into the opening of that season. And then before we ever even kicked a ball, and maybe we were like 1 or 2 games in, our chief financial officer also left the club. Now, the thing is this, there are different stories for why each of these individuals left. I'm not going to spend the time telling the stories of each of those, but I can say that each of these individuals went on to go do something much bigger than the work here with one sports club. They've moved on to bigger leagues, bigger sports, or bigger responsibilities. And I think what it says overall is that 2 things. One is whether it's the club initiating the decision for this person to move on or it's the person initiating the decision to move on, we have to get used to that. Because while I hate, Jason, to talk about farm systems, like comparing minor league baseball to minor league soccer, I think in the spirit of this, that's a really fair association. This is a proving ground for a lot of talented people, whether they are young in their profession or they haven't gotten the exposure in the sporting world of it to move into bigger roles across the country or across the world for that matter. So in that regard, I wouldn't expect someone to really stay more than 3 to 5 years if they want to go and make more money, because they're not going to make as much doing the same thing in a USL championship side club. So if they're out there just trying to get that bread and trying to get a bigger salary, like full on them for that. On the other side of things, if the club is not seeing performance where they want, I kind of have to tip my hat and say, hey, if there's something wrong and you need to pivot to a different direction, it's better to fail fast and then move on than it is to linger and rot and hope that the ship will turn around. If you're not seeing something specific that you want, I'm not saying that that's always fun, but I will always remember my first conversation with David Peart as he came in as the new president of Rhode Island FC. And he said, you know what? I am in a very hot seat, and this seat is not designed for me to sit in for more than 5 years. People, when they get to this level, it's always a rotating door. It's just a conversation of how fast does that door rotate and how much of a legacy can you leave. It's not designed to be something where you're going to be there for 20, 30 years. Maybe 10 years is a great number, but it's one of those things, nevertheless, where I don't know that it's indicative that it's bad for the club to have lost its top 3. I think we have to give the appropriate amount of flowers and good wishes that each of these individuals has gone on to do bigger and better things. And it's probably something that we need to get used to. I don't want them to go any faster than what we've seen at this rate. I think that's one thing that they want to stabilize and find someone who's got a 3 to 5 year plan. But like, this should be something that we consider as kind of pretty normal. Ownership is stable. Technical staff is as stable as the performance on the pitch allows it to be. And then everything else kind of keeps running in the machine. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I think a lot of that makes sense in regards that, in results-based businesses like this, there is a reality, there's burnout, right? And I think that people will understandably always be kind of looking for, potential for growth.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Just so that I say this from the chat, Tim calls me out rightfully on the CFO. So our CFO at the time, which is not the same person, we don't even actually have a CFO anymore. They've re-split a lot of the different organization. Now the CFO, as Tim rightfully called out, set up that she left before the kit reveal party, and I forgot it was much earlier. That I should have known that at the time. But having said that, what I can remember is she had already set up all of the big things. She had set up the sponsors, the contracts. She had set up all of the kind of account receivables divisions, and had gotten the security of a lot of the big growth like perspectives that she needed to get the club off the ground. And so I think that's what allowed them to move kind of into the next chapter, not necessarily panicking that they didn't have a CFO anymore, because Breeze had already been announced at that point, and a lot of the anchor partnerships had already been kind of set in stone. So full credit, Tim. Thanks for calling me out on that. And Rida also asks, does that change because of Division One? I don't think it changes, because if anything, the contracts that are going to see us grow from, at least not just in a financial perspective, but just the league, the headquarters of Rhode Island FC, the headquarters of USL, I think where the money is going to happen is more in broadcast deals, and it's going to happen in player salaries than it'll be anything we see from like us needing more expanded people in leadership. It could stabilize at that point, but I also have a feeling, Rida, that our Division One counterparts are probably going to get paid significantly less than what they could get from an MLS equivalent, at least in the first 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, there'll still be some growth that the league needs to go through. The Division One won't automatically guarantee the money.
Agreed. All right, Phoenix Chuck writes in, can the organization finally admit that they have done a subpar job on merch, and that next year will be much improved, and that the fans want that lavender goalkeeper kit back in rotation and for sale? Short sleeve only, please.
I did want to get one of those, never got one. They were gone too fast.
Listen, Chuck, I agree with you. I think that the club maybe didn't realize because remember, the club doesn't actually run the merch shop anymore. There's a third-party organization they work hand in hand with, but they aren't directly in control of everything that happens there. They have the ability to step in, they have the ability to support, and they make the decisions around the actual product, but the whole logistics part is completely third-party. We probably got 10 to 12 complaints from fans who reached out to the podcast either thinking we were official or just desperate for support because someone had failed to respond to them in a timely manner about a merch question. We saw multiple times this year where they just did it again with the chip on the trip thing, where that new, like the new chip doll, they showed it at the Riverhounds game, and then everyone's like, where do I get it? And the radio silence, right? Like people were just freaking out. I saw a season ticket member complain on Twitter, how do I get this? You're only offering the chip on the trip for new people that sign up for multi-game plans or season tickets. What about your current season ticket members? And the club responded and said, hey, there's an email, go check your email. But to that point, like the club has not done a good job about broadcasting their merch, pre-planning how to order the merch, having the right supply of it. I think they've missed on a couple of other things. Like there's way too many scarves in year two. I think, in my opinion, there's way too many hats and not enough like activewear. Like I still haven't seen a warm jacket up until just recent. I think they just released the Eddie Bauer one like 2 weeks ago, and it's also like a lot of money. So I think organizationally they need to take this one on the chin, Chuck. I think that they need to do better. I hope that they will do better. And when they listen to this and then argue and yell at me later offline and ask for names, I'll make sure that they get in contact with you, Chuck, to get that lavender kit. But I don't think they used the lavender kit this season, so I don't know if you're ever going to see that again. That may need to go on eBay as like a $1,000 collector's item, especially if you have Koke Vegas' signature or that one fan that has that Nate Silvera kit out there. He's sitting on a gold mine.
Colors can come back in rotation, so they could just have it again. So.
True. And a lot of people, by the way, keep complaining that it's Capelli. I don't think it's Capelli. I don't have any proof to that, but other clubs that use Capelli don't seem to go through the same logistics problems. So I don't think it's Capelli, but we'll have to leave it at that. What's this next question?
Yeah, Seth F here says, with Nathan Messer having an amazing year with the Hearts of Pine and getting named to USL One All-League First Team, did Kano get that decision wrong?
I mean, I would challenge with Seth. You know, we didn't re-sign Mark Doyle, and he went and won the USL One Cup final. So we didn't keep Mark, and he played 1,000 minutes. Like, look, Nate Messer, Kano could have kept him, and I definitely see the appeal. But let's just let Nate Messer have his moment, and he's playing a lot. He's doing well. He loves that club. Like he's a left back too. He wouldn't have fit in our system.
Yeah, I think the problem is then like we brought in Aldair Sanchez, and while maybe you could argue the effectiveness of Quiz's season, Aldair was there the whole year, right? So is he getting starts over Aldair? I don't know. I mean, and I think that when you look at that team, the Hearts of Pine, they don't exactly play the same system that we do. They're a little bit more of an actual 4-back line from what I've seen. I haven't watched all their games, but from what whenever I take a look at them, I don't think they're throwing in 3 or 5-back lines. I think that it's pretty much a 4-back system. So I don't think there's a reality where like a player can be great, but they might just not work with the coach or the system.
So I'm going to say something, and come at me in the chat if you want, but Nate Messer also had an incredible season because he was partnered with an incredibly talented left winger in Ollie Wright. People have to remember that sometimes players do remarkable things on their own, but players also benefit from a system that if they have other remarkable players, they get more remarkable together. And it is not nothing that Nathan Messer makes first team all league and Ollie Wright makes second team all league. And you see the link up. I mean, you see the overlaps, you saw the passing sequences, you saw the connectivity between those two players. That chemistry was at 1000%. And so, yes, each player on their own deserve a lot of credit, a lot of praise, but the sum of their parts made them something truly special. I don't know that you would have gotten that combined with Josiah Quezera if he had stayed. I think they have something really great there, and it's good to see both of those players are staying for another year. And I think it's something special to watch. But remember, players, like it's like whenever you get a player, like look at Chico, right? Golden Boot in 2023 comes here, different system, different tactics. Would you say he's just not a good player? I mean, you could say his performance has dropped off, but again, is that the individual talent or is that the system around him not getting him the same goal scoring opportunities? Hard to say. I definitely feel like for those two that it is something tangible, something we could see. All right. This has been the question that Greg H, Matthew Jean doubled in on. He tried to take too many questions for the night, but a couple other people asked. So Jason, here's our fun one. If you could pick one USL 1, one USL championship, and one MLS player to improve Rhode Island FC in 2026, who would it be and why? And you cannot say any former RIFC player, so no Steven Turnbull for you.
Okay, so USL League One. I mean, maybe someone like I want to say Juan Obregon Jr., but like also maybe Ollie Watkins. I don't know a lot of USL League One players, if I'm be completely honest. And I was trying to like look through them and like I was like, I don't know anything about any of these guys, but I do know that Ollie Watkins is good. I've seen enough Hearts of Pine games to.
You mean Ollie Wright?
What's that?
Ollie Wright?
Yeah, Ollie Wright. Sorry,
I know who this Ollie Watkins kid.
Oh yeah, no, he's actually way too good. That's a Premier League player. Yeah, so Ollie Wright or maybe like Juan Obregon Jr. For USL, we could use a right back, right midfielder. Jack Gurr is phenomenal. Maybe if we lose Quezera, which we're not 100% sure if he's re-signing with us, maybe someone like Gennaro Nigro from Las Vegas.
Las Vegas released him today. So Coach Cano, we know you listen to the pod, or Mrs. Smith, Coach Cano's mom, call your son. Let him know he needs to pick up Gennaro Nigro from Las Vegas Lights, formerly from Las Vegas Lights. He's an incredible left wing back. He's going to be amazing for us. Just go ahead and pick up on that.
And then just with MLS, I feel like it's all just for fun anyway with this. But like, Revs legend Diego Fagundes, I don't think he's re-signed with the Galaxy.
No, in fact, there's 3 players, former Revolution players that I saw kind of get released. Diego Fagundes, Maxi Arudi, current on the Revs, he's not getting re-signed, and Tommy McNamara also getting released from the Lights. So if they wanted to bring in some of that Revs pedigree, they could bring in
just
one of the
lean
3
into it. Like,
why
who
not?
cares?
Why not? Okay, I don't like. So first and foremost on mine, I also have Juan Carlos Obregon Jr. I hate that you said that first.
The funny thing is, I didn't look at the notes ahead of time and realize you picked him, and I saw it. It's like, I kind of wanted to have some separation there, but
So I picked him because when you look at what he did, he's in a two striker system with Westchester, but there's almost something magical about the fact that the team that got the wooden spoon in USL 1 also had the golden boot winner. I don't think a lot of people have talked about that. And so for the fact that he did so much with a team that couldn't get it across the finish line, that speaks to a level of tenacity that I think he could do well. He also scored against us when he was playing with the Charlotte Independence in US Open Cup. He scored against us there, and he scored against us in the Westchester game. So like he has some tenacity to him. And what I don't know is if Westchester was like all attack, no defense, which has allowed him to get that many goals. So if that's the case,
Just vibes.
I may walk that back a little bit. So then I would say like find me a keeper, whoever was like the second all team keeper, because we're gonna need a backup keeper after some tragic news around our goalkeeping core. And so I wouldn't mind that at all. So in my USL championship, though, I did also have Gennaro Nigro, but I will give a different pick since you stole that. I will say Nick Moon, right wing back from Tampa Bay Rowdies, was released. I don't know if he's like out of contract and in discussion or if he was released completely outright, but Nick Moon came off of a pretty bad injury, didn't get enough minutes. He's young, he's a big body, and I think he could do really good with us. He's a fringe US men's national team player. I think he could be exceptional for us. So I'd like to see Nick Moon join the squad. My other one, and I have no circumstance to back this up other than a really sad emoji tweet that Augie Williams, who just won the championship, did today. I think he's been released from the Riverhounds based on just the tweet that he released. And I wouldn't mind to see him come in, because what I saw him do, again, we talk about the construction of the Riverhounds and the Rhode Island FC are very similar in terms of like single striker systems. Augie didn't have a good goal production season, but his ability to win the ball, and whether it was route one or in that forward pass, and then put a second ball in place of runners oncoming, I think that's something we could use when we don't have the likes of JJ Williams on the pitch. And maybe if we had two of them, maybe doors would get unlocked. Absolutely. And then my MLS one, weird that you said a Galaxy player. I also said a Galaxy player, Miguel Berry. Miguel Berry, for those of you that don't know, is just, he'll never get starting minutes because there are so many other DP level strikers in this league. He's like 6'4", he's a freight train, and the kid just hustles, and like he'd be perfect to come down to championship and tear it up. So if I could get a Miguel Berry, we saw what Ethan Zubak has been doing for Orange County, lighting it up for them. I think Miguel Berry could destroy the championship. So my MLS take is Miguel Berry. Now, if Brett Johnson and Dan Krober want to spend big bucks, they need to go call Colorado Rapids and Jonathan Lewis's agent right now and get themselves Jonathan Lewis from the Colorado Rapids. He would destroy teams in the championship. I don't think he'd ever come down. But my runner-ups, by the way, Akeem Ward from Colorado Springs Switchbacks. I don't think he's going back to them. He's one of the fastest wingbacks in championship on that left side. And then, of course, go get Peter Wilson and get the golden boot from this year, because we know how much that works out for us. So just get another golden boot. MLS, though, Jason, what if I told you, and everyone in the chat, everyone needs to talk about this. And yes, I need one of the admins in chat to ban Matthew Jean for putting that name in the chat. We will not be signing Paul Blanchett to Rhode Island FC, but there's a player, Jason, who plays for the Vancouver Whitecaps. He's a goalkeeper, a position we're going to need to fill. And his name, everyone, pay attention, take notes. His name is Max Anchor. This kid needs to be signed immediately. He plays for the
honorary
Canadian youth team.
lifetime
Yeah,
contract.
we need Max Anchor. You want to sell jerseys, Rhode Island FC? You go get yourself some Max Anchor. Okay. Max Anchor may become my favorite player of all time. I may put out a lifetime. I'm just going to follow you wherever you go. I want Max Anchor on this team, and I want him here yesterday.
He needs to have his full name on the back too.
Oh, 100%. 100%. What's this next question?
Steve R says, could we expect to see any synergy from Ipswich Town at this point?
I love this question. It's like we have this whole relationship, but we don't have a relationship yet. I would love to see Kano, and through the ownership group, find a way to start seeing some players, whether they're U18 or U21 Ipswich guys, come in and get minutes. Now, I don't know enough about Ipswich's academy system. I don't know enough about Ipswich now at this point to be able to make any meaningful connections. But I feel like a goalkeeper in our current situation, why not? Whoever their U21 secondary goalkeeper is, bring him over to us. If it's comparable, if it's apples to apples, have a go at it on a loan out to us. I'd love to see what that could look like. But I would eventually like to see a bridge where how can we get some players that are fringe players in their U18 or the U21 and get them to get some reps. If we can bring Matthew Corcoran from Nashville to our team for 6 games before he goes on to play in a MLS playoff game, we can find a way to bring Ipswich Town players to Rhode Island FC. All about it. All about it. Chad M writes in, is this type of season an argument for or against Pro-Rel? Does the excitement of a playoff bracket and the possibility of a lower seeded team winning out outweigh the concept of Pro-Rel?
So we're trying to argue that like having lower seeds progress in playoffs.
Underdogs. Do underdogs make a better storyline than just the love of a Pro-Rel system?
I don't think you see it enough. And I think the thing about Pro-Rel that is exciting, at least in your standard like soccer league concept, is you actually have 2 things going on at the same time, right? You have a battle for the top spot on top of the fact that you have battle for Pro-Rel. And then generally, like maybe you don't always have both of those, or like maybe it's not a great season. Maybe they're both like only one of them is exciting, right? But you have 2 opportunities there for something to go on, as opposed to like just the playoffs. That being said, I don't see a world where Pro-Rel happens and we scrap playoffs. I think playoffs still happen. Because I don't think the American soccer fan
we need it.
Playoffs is too ingrained into our like sports ecosystem.
Yeah.
That you can't just pluck it away.
No, I agree. I think what will happen, and I have no insider information on this, but we've heard that maybe only one team will start in the Pro-Rel of going up and going down, just to make sure it's not too impactful as they move. But I really think it's probably going to be 2. And I think the team that wins outright automatically elevated, and the team that is the worst automatically relegated. And then I think there's a playoff on both sides.
So you have the second plays let's say there's 16. That's like the 15th team.
No. Second through let's say 5th play for second, third, fourth, 5th. Yeah, they play for the other promotion spot, and then these are positions 12. I would say just have one play-in game for positions, because I think there's going to be 12 teams in the first iteration. So positions 10 and 11 play a single knockout game at the 10th place's home field in a do or die for the other spot to go down. I think that's the way you would probably want to do it. Of course, there's multiple iterations of how you could do it, but I agree with you. You have to have promotion and you have to have playoffs. You can't do both. And then when you get to Premier and you're at the top flight, you're playing for an actual cup. You're not playing for the playoffs to promote. You're playing for the USL Cup. And I would limit it to 4 teams, especially for how small that would be. 4 teams, away and home legs, winner take all at the end. And yeah, I'm all about it. What's this next question? We're kind of stacking in here on more Pro-Rel comments.
Yeah, Ryan O says, does the addition of a Pro-Rel system mean that we no longer need playoffs? Most of the time, the more interesting part of the system is the battle at the bottom of the table. Do the bottom teams also do a playoff to see who avoids relegation?
Yeah, so I think we just said that. I think we answered that. That's exactly what it should be. Because like again, I allude this back to baseball, or when your team is not when your team's just not in it. There are teams right now in championship play where it's really like Miami is at the bottom, right? Like Monterey Bay is going to be at the bottom. If they've already ran away with the table in the wrong direction, that doesn't make a fun and compelling relegation story. I think then that becomes like, hey, yeah, you're not the 12th place team, or I guess in this instance, you're not the 11th place team, but you are the 10th place team, and you're going to have to play a do or die to see if you go down. So either get higher up that table, or you better be ready for the fight of your life and the heartbreak that will come from a single match determining. That game could have more viewership than mid-championship battle between the second and fifth team for the other team who goes up. That could have more watches the other direction, because people, you watch NASCAR for the car crashes, you don't watch NASCAR for who wins the race. So could be either way. John Q, more pro rel here. I forgot. We got a lot in here. John Q, going along with pro rel with a commitment to Division One and a higher level of play with more investment, do you expect incremental changes to the roster over the next 2 to 3 years, or do you think there would be a fairly drastic turnover by that 2028 season?
I don't expect a huge amount of change. I think the reality is like, yes, will we call ourselves division? We'll put teams into Division One, call them Division One, but I think that change is going to be very incremental. I don't expect it to happen all overnight. There's a lot more growth that is still needed. MLS at the end of the day, hashtag non-LMS podcast, has a lot more money. And for us to eat away at them, I think will have to be something that happens over time. It's not going to be overnight, right? We need to launch Division One, and it needs to launch to, let's say, mostly a success. I think there can be a few hiccups along the way, but I think that needs to be an exciting product. And I think that will draw more people in. More people in, more viewership, like more fans, more money, and that's going to slowly build over time. It's not just going to be a switch. I think people need to realize it's not just going to be a switch that someone flips and be like, boom, we're here. Everything's great. It's the goal. It's the promised land. Like, this is somewhat of the long game that we're going to have to go through 5 or 10 years of a Division One that is entertaining and successful to actually really draw attention away from these other leagues.
Yeah, and if you think Kano now 2 Eastern Conference Finals back to back, if he leaves, these players may not fit the next coach's ideas, right? So by 2028, you could see a complete turnover in the roster just because leadership has changed. And if Kano is here that long, then maybe he wants to move tactics on. I mean, players will always come and go. I don't think we'll see that drop off into 2028. I think if anything, if the purse strings open up, you may see some bigger acquisitions to try to go out right away and win the whole thing, or to make sure you're as far away from that relegation door as possible. But I don't think we'll see an explosion overnight. Look at the MLS. I mean, they were basically bypassing leagues like this, and you would go from college straight into MLS draft and be a starter for an MLS team the next year. And it took them 26 years to get to the likes of where they are now. And I would still argue that sometimes they still don't get their spending right because of the restrictions they have on salaries here in the league.
Yeah. Tim M here says, can you see the USL trying football video support, or FVS, as an alternative to VAR in an attempt to improve officiating as they prepare for Division One and Pro Rel?
FVS is interesting. I've been paying attention to it. I haven't seen any data that shows that it's good or bad so far. Like, I need to get deeper into the weeds. My only thing with FVS versus VAR, so football video support, is where basically it's like VAR light. And what you can do is you can go in, and if there's a challenge, and it has to be, there's certain criteria. You can't just challenge for anything. The ref will stop play, go over, and just watch the broadcast package replays. So whether that's like the top down or if there was a zoom in, but they're not getting how VAR has other cameras and other angles that you don't see in the broadcast package to examine a play. And they have 4 refs in a control booth giving their recommendation. This is just a ref making a self-reflection on whether they got it right or wrong. I don't know how many refs would go back and say, oh yeah, I got that wrong. Usually when VAR is saying like, hey man, we think you messed up here. We think you really want to go take a look at this. And then there's that pressure from, the council of refs to say, hey, yeah, like this one needs to be overturned. It could help, but like if refs at this level don't want to face that level of correction, then it's just wasting time on something. I'm all about trying it. The game can only become better by innovations and trying things out. And as long as it doesn't add too much time to the clock to go and do these challenges, like I'm cool with it, but I don't know if it's the answer. I would rather see as a first step, I'd rather see goal line technology. That would be the first thing I would want to see implemented in every stadium before I saw FVS, but that's just me.
Yeah. No, I think goal line technology is a good shout. I looked a little bit into FVS, and I think that it's interesting, and like you said, I'd be willing to have it tried out to see if it could be something, but only time will tell when it comes to these things. A lot of them need years of testing.
Yeah. And I'm late to the chat, but Matt brought up Leicester City and how that could show the underdog in Pro Rel. The difference between that was could Leicester win the whole thing? And it was game after game where like it's not the same as single elimination. Like they had to get through the table. So I agree with you, Matt, but at the same time, it's not the same as like in this moment Leicester's going to be champions based on this one game. A lot of things had to go their way in that 2016 season. So like I'm all for it, but I still think playoffs are there. So getting back on track, Leo, when it comes to signings, we've seen players in the past come in with different levels of experience, ranging from fresh out of college or an academy to years of pro experience. With nearly all of the returning players having multiple years of pro experience, do you foresee more under the radar or underappreciated collegiate players coming in, or should we expect only signings that have already some form of professional exposure?
Good question. I think the reality is we haven't seen, right? Like we look at some of like our kind of like college fringe players, and a lot of them just haven't got that much minutes. I think the reality is there to help fill out the squad, and also that there is a bit of like, what if you find a diamond in the rough, right? Because you never know with some of these players. I think that we will continue to have these players come into the squad and always have maybe 2 or 3 of them in there, someone who is for the future. And if it works out, perfect. If not, if we can kind of at least have them there for training and maybe even move them on for some sort of minimal fee. I think that's just part of the bigger picture. College to me is such a weird thing because it doesn't line up with the way soccer is played. Like, well, it's soccer is about academies, right? These kids should be playing soccer from, like 7 or whatever. And they're like usually identified by like 14 or 15, whether or not they're going to be world players. And at that point, like they're already playing for, what's the Kevin Sullivan or whatever guy, like
for Philly. No, man.
Yeah. So like, I don't know how much stock I would put into collegiate players. I think you'll find a few late bloomers here and there, but overall, I don't know if I would.
I don't think we will. I think we can. We need to secure talent. We don't really have the ability to take chances, and we can find at the regional level in the colleges where our network is. Because remember, we don't have a scouting department. We have Sean Carey and Connor Smith, and then any relations that players have with agents and like their alma maters and schools that they've worked with in the past. We don't have like a true scouting network. We don't have an academy. So like taking chances when especially you only have like maybe 4 spots open right now, as of right now on your roster, like do you want to spend it on another Taimu, or do you want to go out and get a proven product that will be a different? Like, I don't think now it will be a thing, but I think as we get into Division 1 and we really need to have depth and like strategic planning beyond just season after season, then I could see it, Leo. But right now, I don't think we'll take a chance. I think we'll see signings that are collegiate players that we have no clue about, but that's because Kano knows about them through his network and they make sense. But I don't think that that's something like I just don't see it yet right now. So outside of New England, I'd be hard pressed unless there's a connection to one of the coaches that already exists. So what's the next question?
Yeah, Brad R here says, we've seen a number of Providence College players join Rhode Island FC. Why are we not tapping into Bryant University more, considering they just secured their first ever NCAA national tournament win by defeating Seton Hall 1-0 in the second round and are now just 3 wins away from the title? Did we not build a partnership during our tenure at Byrne last season?
It's a great question, Brad. I think honestly, this might be the question of the night, like, because I agree. I know that we often have Providence College players moonlight and come over for practice sessions at Centerville Bank Stadium. Obviously, we've seen Providence College players kind of come through a lot, whether they've signed with the first team and then moved on. Cole Dewhurst and Kevin Vang, some of the immediate names that come to mind. I don't know what the relationship is. I know that the relationship between the club and the administration of Bryant was at times difficult because as anyone renting and needing facilities and needing to do things like managing schedules, I know that was tedious. Parking lots, it was tedious at times. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form would have bled over to the relationships between Kano and I think is it Craig Stewart that runs the Bryant program? I don't know, or maybe he runs Providence. Apologies, I don't remember every collegiate head coach at the moment, but I don't think there's any bad blood. So why we don't have Bryant players, I couldn't tell you. Maybe North Smithfield is just too far because it's more than 12 minutes away. But I don't know why we haven't seen players like that. At the same time, this is Bryant's highest they've ever gone. So maybe now Kano's going to these games and going, hey, or whatever, let's get some of these players into our squad for next season. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I'm also curious why we haven't leveraged a program because I think they're now 11th in I think they're 11th in NCAA, and I think they're now second in. I mean, they could win the whole thing here in just a couple games, like Brad said. So I don't have an answer, but it's a very curious question why we haven't signed a Bryant University player, given the amount of success we've seen from this track record now here from this university. Next question, Andrew M. writes in, with the MLS moving to a European schedule, will or should USL follow suit?
Will they is difficult to answer. I think that's a possibility, but I think that would be something that would be way down the line. Should they? No. And I think the reason why is that we don't really compete in the same markets. And so yet. And I think that there's that kind of big gap during the summer where there's not particularly a lot going on, right? Like you're in that second half of baseball where you already kind of know whether or not you're going to make the playoffs. And I think there's really opportunity there for, USL to kind of really build some momentum there leading into the fall. MLS is going to compete against, NFL in that regards. I mean, I know they think that somehow it's going to save their finals, but I also think that they're really doing it specifically for the European transfer window.
Yeah.
The reality is we are not sniffing around that at all. We are getting players from lower leagues all over other places around the world, or players who maybe really couldn't make it at those levels.
Yeah.
So it would not benefit us to change that schedule. And USL relies so much heavier on ticket sales than MLS does with all their corporate nonsense partnerships that they could probably sacrifice some games, get their sweet Apple money and all their other corporate partnerships, get those big signings, hopefully get the viewership around the world. I think that's where they're banking on their money. We don't have that here.
So let me ask a question. You now have this pocket of time, 2-ish months, maybe 2.5, where it's just USL. Do you get even more games in that window? Should we see all of our double headers happen through that summer window?
I mean, that's where you should be pushing games on CBS.
No, I hear you. I'm just asking though, is that where you concentrate more fire? Because you have to have midweek games. They're inevitable, whether it's Open Cup, it's something else. There's we had 5 or 6 non-tournament play midweek games. Do you make sure those are all compressed into the summer window where the calendar can allow for it? So that you say, hey, here's all the USL you could ever want because nothing else is on to watch.
Potentially. I think the reality, you need to spread it out across the whole year. And so you look at a market like Phoenix, right? Well, their midweek games should be in March and April when the weather is nicer out there before it's 115.
No, they just play them all away in the midweeks during the summer. It's perfect.
So, you could look at things like that. Different markets can kind of fill out that schedule. So you still have, saturation throughout the whole year.
Yeah. I don't think we'd move, Andrew. And I will say this, though, something that no one's really talked too much about. South America does not have the same transfer window. So MLS is just kind of abandoned one of their most lucrative market. I mean, you think about all the Brazilian and Argentinian and Uruguayan populations that have come up and tried MLS as a place. That is now at risk as they go to where everyone else already is. So in one way, they get access to a certain thing, but they're shutting the door on another. I'll be curious if USL could see a bigger swing of South American and Central American players come into the ranks because they are switching their schedule. It's an interesting concept. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think USL needs to. I don't think they should, because right now all their eggs are in this promotion, relegation, Division 1 basket, and that's where they should be. What's the next question?
Rachel H here says, with MLS switching calendars, does that mean we'll get MLS refs in that window?
Another great question. Something like I did not think about. I think so, because they all work for a living, and they are paid better than USL refs in that sense. But one, no one's talked about how does USL Pro need to, not USL Pro, Pro need to expand its Division 1 refs for the eventual premiership that will join in those ranks when you talk about the caliber of game management. So yeah, I mean, they're going to have to expand their Division 1 refs. In addition, those refs, while getting paid a very good wage, they also they need something to do, right? Like, there's already that off-season break in the middle of December, so they already get their 4 to 5 week vacation, if you will. So yeah, I think we would see some better quality refs, especially in that pocket of time where certain refs want to stay sharp, they want to see more games, they want to get paid more money. Yeah, we could see better reffing for that period of time, or a blending of the reffing pool across the world. I mean, Natalie Simon, she didn't ref the USL final, but she did ref the NWSL final. So again, you see already that kind of sharing of talent. So yeah, Rachel, great question. I absolutely think that would be a thing. Now, if that was a good question, Frank K, we're gonna have a question for you a little later privately in email, because this question hurt my brain. This is a very serious question, everyone, so brace yourselves. With Yellow Card being the only soccer referenced American band, and the fact that they just released a new album, should they be in charge of creating the official FIFA World Cup song for 2026? Jason, when Frank wrote this in, I talked to you about it earlier and asked if you knew that Yellow Card was in fact referenced to soccer. We found out it was not. It was a parody on soccer to reference party culture, where if they committed a party foul, you'd get a yellow card. I don't know if Frank knew that. We now know. We've had to deep dive too far into Yellow Card lore. I'm not happy about it, but let's just go over under. Is Yellow Card going to be in charge of the FIFA World Cup song for 2026?
No, but they should be. I mean, they at least should be they have multiple songs. They should be somewhere in there.
So Shakira first, Yellow Card second. Shakira needs to do.
I mean, it's probably just going to be Bad Bunny. So I mean,
could you imagine how angry? First he gets the Super Bowl, and then he gets the World Cup song. I'm there for it. Let's do it.
Locked in. Barbara H here says, it was great to meet you at the block party. I heard you asking players to describe the season in one word. What would your one word be, and why?
You know what's funny is I copied this question in and did not think about it ahead of time. And Barbara, it was nice to meet you. It was actually, I met like 5 or 6 of the listeners. They all came up. Really great to meet all of you. It was really fun. One of them said hi. They said their name, and then I said, "Oh, hi, yeah, I'm Matt." And they're like, "Yeah, I know who you are. I watch you on your podcast." Like, not my best moment. Barbara, I would say my one word, not using a hyphenated word. I would say my one word would probably be resilient. I think when you look at the adversities this team had to overcome from the injury perspective, and the fact that the sickos weren't always happy, they weren't happy with themselves, and they knew how much it meant to have a successful first year in their new stadium. I think that they did the most they could with it. So I'm going to say resilient. Even if it didn't get everywhere they wanted to be, I think they put up a good fight. Do you want to take a stab at this?
I mean, I think that's a good way to describe the season.
Can't steal my word.
It's hard to think about it and really wrap it into one word, because there was some ups and downs here.
You could say roller coaster, like 5 players did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
full credit. Bad. Isaac's allowed to use roller coaster whenever he wants.
Yeah.
Do you got one, or do we move on?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Either a resilient roller coaster. It's hyphenated.
Count. You would break the rules every single time. All right, Alex T writes in, what was your favorite moment of the season?
Ooh, favorite moment of the season. There's too many. Jeff brought up a good point. Kano being on the roof. There was the first 4 home games that all ended in rainbows, because it rained for 10 minutes from the 80th to the 90th minute. for no reason. That was great. That last minute penalty that we got was kind of a big moment there. The 4-1 win at Hearts of Pine at home, that was a lot of fun.
Can you save me one and just pick one?
Those are just some moments that kind of speak to me.
Nothing stands out as the supreme moment. You're just gonna paint the entire canvas with all of them.
Yeah, we use all the colors of the
Okay,
rainbow.
okay, that's fine.
The
I'm gonna
wind or
say I
whatever.
had two favorite moments. One was the first march to the match, and everyone getting excited, getting to do that for the first time was really special. I'll never forget the person that was painting the bridge right as like 200 people marched past him. I thought like there's just that will stick in my mind for forever. And then I will unfortunately have to steal. Like I said earlier, but I think Maxi's helping the team win that first game at home with at the death. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a more fun storyline, especially considering he had scored a penalty, or excuse me, he had already scored with the Revolution earlier in the Open Cup. That was also a really fun match as well. So it was really exciting to see. And then maybe also third would be Birmingham getting knocked out in the semis of Jägermeister Cup. That was pretty special too. So Alex, thanks for that question. What's this next one?
Yeah. What is success next year to you guys for this club?
Home playoff berth. That's it.
Yeah,
I think we talked about at the very beginning of the show.
No notes.
Lots of goals too. I'd like to see a lot more goals, but home playoff game is success. And then I think kind of tying back into Chuck, making sure that from a merchandise standpoint, people feel supported. They're getting the things they want. I'd say that's probably the only L that the club has really experienced this year. They've been really good and responsive in a lot of other ways, but that would be it. So, Alan, or what do you have, or is it just home playoff berth?
Same thing there.
Okay.
Like get a home playoff game.
Alan R writes in, love the show. If you could interview any player, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh man.
One player name and 30 seconds. Go.
I don't know. Thierry Henry.
Ooh. He'd probably teach you a lot about the game in just that interview.
He's such a well-spoken person. He was a brilliant player. I think he would be enjoyable to talk to. I mean, part of me wants to like talk to some of the American greats, but I think there's also a lot of good interviews out there with them. It's like you look at people like Dempsey, right? But there already are a lot of great interviews out there with him. Not that there isn't with Henry, but I think Henry would just be a more enjoyable conversation on a personal level. He just seems like a fun dude.
That's fair. I would say Zlatan Ibrahimovic, just because I've talked to him before one time, and he's very much the third person alter ego that you see and that you consume. But depending on how the interview goes, he will either be very gentle and very kind with you, or he will be very disastrous and tear you apart. So I would want nice Zlatan. I would not want I'm angry Zlatan. So that would be like a 50-50. But if I couldn't have him, I feel like Ian Robin. I don't know why. I'd want to go and hang out with Robin and just ask him some stuff.
Picard,
yeah. You know, that or maybe Nigel de Jong. One of those two. Like that would be my players. What's this next one?
What are the odds we get another preseason in Bermuda? That's from Jeff G.
Good question. We won't know until probably after the schedule releases, because we'll get a hint of what that preseason looks like. But we're 2 for 2. I think it was positive that we saw Portland get added into the mix and come down and kind of copy our notes on it. I would like to see eventually like a Bermudian Kings Cup tournament, like some sort of like Bermudian invitational, if you will. And like Hartford comes, Westchester shows up, Vermont Green figure it out and show up. Like I would love it. I would genuinely love to see that happen. It could be pretty good for the Bermudian, the economy there, just spending the money. We could then create. People are already asking like how do we go and visit?
Like, hey, let's go out and
so I think that would be cool. Now, do we get one? I don't know what the cost effectiveness of it is. The club has done a really good job of spending money to get these guys squared away since we don't have a training facility. To the earlier point that Ewan makes, if we get that online, I think Bermuda falls off so they can save money. But as long as Coach Cano's in this league, you better believe that with this team, you better believe that we'll do Bermuda. So I think we'll get a chance,
right?
Yeah, I think we'll get at least one more, but I don't know we need to figure a way to make it sustainable so that it is a permanent thing. I'm sorry to do this to you. I didn't choose for you to ask this question or answer this question, but Matt Jean writes in, and he demanded that this gets in. What makes a cake and a pie a pie? Can one be the other?
It's a good question, Matt.
We're off the rails now. So for those of you that want to listen, these are all questions now that are questions. I'll leave it at that.
So I think a pie needs to have a crust.
Yes.
So, but I question, could you then take a pie crust and put cake batter in that? And that is it. Is that a cake pie?
It's a pie cakein, technically.
Pie-cakein?
If you flipped it upside down where the crust then became the top layer, it could still be a K. It'd be an upside down cake pie. But yes, the only rule is
pineapple on it.
The only rule is a pie has to have a pie crust, a filling. It does not have to have an enclosed top.
Yeah, it could be open.
That's it. So a cheesecake is a pie. A cheesecake is a pie, Jason. Do not start a fight on this podcast right now. A cheesecake is a pie.
I'm not arguing. I'm just like, so then cake is just, it has to be bready of some sort, right? Or,
I don't know.
But then was ice cream cake still has bread, right? They just put ice cream on top of it, or?
But I think they have a pie crust. So the point is, a cheesecake can be a pie. So that satisfies Matt's first question. Can one be the other? A pie needs to have a crust and a filling. And that's what makes it a pie. Can a cake be part of that? Sure. Can a pie ever be a cake? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
you have to still have the crust, which makes it a pie. And that's the answer. We move on. I see your brain struggling over there. We're moving on.
I'm just trying to science it out. Sam R says, what are you guys looking forward to the most this offseason?
Taking a break from silly questions like Matt Jean's cake pie question. That's for sure. No, I mean, we joke we're taking a break, but the reality is we start gearing up. We start tuning the show for next year. We have big plans. Spoiler alert, we're maybe going to be required to keep these to 42 minutes or less.
Possible.
Because the show can't go longer than that moving forward if you guys are smart enough to figure that out. But we'll have some big announcements in 2026 heading your guys' way. So that's going to be fun. So we're going to be doing a lot of work to practice that. But other than that, it's going to be taking some time off. I don't know. I don't know what else to do. We do this so often, Jason. I don't know what else there is besides podcasts and watching soccer. Teach me how to live again.
I don't know. When I figure that out myself, I will. I'll pass the notes along to your way.
So apparently, we're just going to be workaholics and continue on working on giving you guys the best podcast possible, or maybe the best soccer show here in the near future. Matthew Jean also asks, what about the hot dog conversation at the end of the block party? You said you would tell us this week. Matthew Jean, go back and listen to the end of the one-word player interview conversation and go past the minute and a half of silence, and you'll get your answer there on that one. Yeah, Natesky, we won't be able to talk for more than 42 minutes. I'll let you guys figure out why that is. And Andy King also says that cake must be bready. So, whatever. Jason, I only have one last question for you as we wrap things up here in one of our longest mailbags of all space and time.
Yeah.
What are you thankful for? It's Thanksgiving this Thursday. What are you thankful for? How much are you thankful for that thing? And what is your favorite thing to eat at Thanksgiving?
I am thankful for this soccer community, the friends and family that are a part of it. It's been a great year, even if maybe our expectations were a little too high. At the end of the day, I'll have a lot of great memories to look back on. And favorite thing to eat at Thanksgiving outside of canned cranberry sauce?
Don't you do it.
Canned cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce is the devil. I said it. Yeah,
it's so tart. I love it.
Listen, I'm thankful that you can say answers like that right in front of me, and I don't reach across this desk and strangle the life out of you. Listen, thank you to everyone who has listened to this show. Thank you for all of the hours you've put up with us. I hope, like me, when I listen on the playback for technical, you put us on speed 1.5 or speed 2 to quickly get through your day. I know I do. And no, it's seriously
1.25.
Like the sicko you are. I truly am thankful for every single person who's reached out this year, whether it's been an email, it's been in social media, it's been in person. I cannot tell you guys how often when we get to talk to someone, I think of Derek at the Pittsburgh game, who came up and said, "Hey, first time, long time," and introduced himself. And it's those moments that resonate, at least for me. I won't put words in Jason's cranberry sauce ridden mouth, but I want to say thank you to everyone who listens. We don't do this for ourselves; we do this for you guys, and we will continue to do that in whatever iteration that this show becomes in 2026. And so, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you all have a wonderful set of holidays between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and whatever else it is that you celebrate. We will have one last show of a live caliber in the week to come. Producer Torrin will come back on for one more edition of something fun that we're looking to do. And then we will go into break. So it'll just be interviews at that point on. So some good interviews that will be coming down from the technical staff and some local business owners before we get back into things for 2026. As a reminder, we will be at the East Providence Yacht Club on December 6th from 1 to 3 p.m. That's that Saturday, to help with the ballots for Defiant 1636's election board. We will also possibly, it has not yet been, we're still working this out, and I apologize, this may come fast and furious, but we are trying to work and partner with Tide Talk to host a set of debates, if you will, more of debates in the sense of our candidates being able to promote themselves. There's 10 lovely people all trying to join the Defiance board, trying to work the logistics out of that. It's kind of come fast and furious, so hopefully we can get that all sorted and worked out. Tide Talk will get 5. We'll get 5 and be able to demonstrate and showcase all of the excellent people looking to support and help run Defiant 1636. So that may or may not happen. Hoping it does. So that'll be injected somewhere else along in the broadcast schedule. But that's basically it until we get you ready and we do the whole thing again come January, February in 2026. Jason, my favorite food item is the turducken I'm going to cook for you, and you're going to enjoy without that cranberry sauce. What's the final word, my friend, for one last time here in 2025?
Thankful. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm going to cut you off. Matt Jean is thankful for the 1,052 pounds of food and $5,000 donated by Defiance members to the food bank today. Congratulations to everyone that donated. What a wonderful experience. What a wonderful thing to be able to help and take care of for people. So well done to everyone. Pat yourselves on the back.
Awesome community. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us again, as always. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage. And that's including RFC at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RAFC Podcasts. We got on Instagram at Raising Anchor. And then you can always go check out our website, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchors up, y'all. Happy holidays.
Anchors up. Happy Thanksgiving.